Hey, 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 live from Denver. It's Friday night. Let's make sure all is... Here we go. Welcome to Critical Conversations for the 2nd of June in the year of our Lord, 2023. And I am joined tonight by my beautiful wife, Melissa.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Happy to see you all in the comments. How interesting some of the exchanges here tonight. Apparently somebody I used to know is in the comments. I did not know, Colonel Brock, that you are a former CMO from PAC. How interesting. Still not going to eat that cat food. Okay, we have, exactly. We got a show tonight. We got some things to go over. So let's go ahead and do our usual routine things. Get going. Let everybody give a chance to get on board. I see we have more viewers than usual. Oh, flag. Okay. Cool, Colonel. Did you have a quote to start us off?
Yes. I was listening to a lot of stuff about chronic illness today, so here is a good chronic illness quote. Behind every chronic illness is just a person trying to find their way in the world. We want to find love and be loved and be happy just like you. We want to be successful and do something that matters. We're just dealing with unwanted limitations in our hero's journey. Glenn Schweitzer.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. We just have more obstacles to overcome in our hero story.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you, Anthony, for that super chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So many things. I need to, I want to share this right off the top before I forget or skip by this or anything. I got, Tony Ortega posted about this week, and I said I would also promote this on my channel as I was emailed about it directly. And this has to do with, I was emailed by someone saying we are anonymous. And here's what we've got is a site called Scientologydeathlist.org. Scientologydeathlist.org. We have recently received an enormous amount of anonymous entries that we have to verify of people who developed cancer while on or who had completed OT7. Very high, second to the highest Scientology OT level. Excuse me. We welcome you to publish a video about our site and encourage your ex-Scientologist video followers to post their anonymous entries onto the site. We've gone out of our way to ensure no IP addresses are tracked, even on a hosting server level.
Wow.
So if you have stories or testimonials or information, anecdotes, whatever, about Scientology deaths, this would be the place to go. Scientologydeathlist.org. And I have now executed my duty in regards to getting that out there, and I hope you guys check it out. Like I said, Tony also reported on it this week. Okay, so that is that. So this was a damn busy week. I am a little tired tonight. It's been a week. The Masterson verdict, of course, came in, and that was a big deal. There's just no other way to put it. It was a big deal. And Scientology's response to it, did a live stream on that the morning that it happened. I'm not in the habit of doing that kind of thing. It is tiring trying to, post continually like that. And it doesn't allow me to do the quality of work or the type of work that I normally do, which is what this channel is really all about. So, but I did have, good time this week with that news. I'm sure we all did from the trial, and then seeing the completely ridiculous, asinine levels of response from David Miscavige, or Scientology nameless, faceless spokesperson, who we all pretty much assume is Miscavige. So those were fun live streams to do, and it really got a lot of views and everything too, which is pretty cool. Also, during the course of talking about all that, when the verdict came out, I think I got my Twitter followers also went out the roof.
Oh yeah,
which was kind of fun. In the course of that, though, I was mega annoyed by something, and I doubt that the folks who are super concerned about this are even watching, but maybe they are. Maybe this will be of interest to people. It's an educational point, and it's a point of just real annoyance for me. All right, so I want to be clear about something. From day one of posting videos and talking publicly, it has been abundantly clear in my language that I believe in tolerance, compassion, and understanding of people. That is what brings people together rather than drives them apart. These are important values to me. However, I will respect your right to believe whatever you want. That doesn't mean I'm going to be down with what you believe. Just doesn't. You
don't have to believe to respect.
Exactly. I respect the right. That doesn't mean I'm going to respect everybody's beliefs. I shouldn't. There are beliefs out there of a neo-Nazi nature, of a genocidal nature, of racism, of sexism, of bigotry that I don't respect at all. Why would I respect those beliefs? They're awful, and they reflect awful behavior towards other people that is in exact contravention to compassion, understanding, and tolerance. So this is an important distinction to be made, and often people can't seem to grasp that concept. So I wanted to make it clear and just kind of put it out there again. That being said, I do believe in Diablo 4, Colonel. Thank you for asking. So respecting that is important, but also another aspect of this, getting on a microphone and putting myself out here is I am who I am, and I am an atheist. I'm an agnostic. I don't identify with any major religion, and I don't really believe in any of them. I certainly respect people's rights to have their beliefs, but I'm not somebody who is going to spend an awful lot of time making sure that I'm using language that doesn't offend. It's going to happen. And there's no way, if you are trying to retreat from offending everybody, you will say nothing.
Right.
That's the only avenue of success with I'm not going to offend anybody is you're going to go into
just impossible.
Yeah. You're going to go into a corner and you're going to be
and
quiet.
And then if you're quiet, that'll offend someone.
Exactly. So a funny instance of this, really, in hindsight, I'm kind of laughing about this right now. But in my live stream, referring to, in one of the live streams I did, I think it was the one I did on the response from Scientology, I referred to a clerical collar that ministers or priests wear, and I think I referred to a Catholic. I referred to a Catholic collar, and I called it a dog collar. I said a Catholic dog collar. And I was referring to the more formally named clerical collar that we're all familiar with that ministers and priests wear. I called it that because I learned that word from ministers and pastors, and I did not think twice about it. It wasn't a word of a term of derision or insult or offense, and yet I had, I'm talking about a handful of people who got upset about this. And guess what, right? I went and looked this up because I was like, okay, there was enough furor over this, and people were like, I'm going to unsubscribe. I'll go get my news from Aaron. And it's just like, okay,
go ahead.
Bye. I mean, I'm not a news channel. That's not what this channel is. So I'm not even trying to do that. I keep up to date on certain events that have everything to do with the educational content of my channel. So it's no sick burn on me that you're gonna, like, oh, okay. Anyway, this was a learning moment though, because here's these people, Catholics, who are responding very negatively to I'm going to unsubscribe and I can't believe you and where's your tolerance? And I was like, I learned this from ministers. A Catholic minister and a Scientology minister both use this term to describe this thing. That's where I learned it from. But I went and looked it up, and sure enough, You can find there's a Wikipedia page on clerical collars, and dog collar is in the list. Informal word.
The first
to describe it.
Right? Sentence of Wikipedia.
Exactly. The traditional full collar, the style informally described as a dog collar, is a ring that closes at the back of the neck, presenting a seamless front, right? So that's, anyway, probably wasted too much time on that, but I just thought it was funny to me that people got so offended over a term that has no offense in it, no offense meant, and yet they jump onto the, issue as though I'm some offensive person. So anyway, at first it pissed me off. Then I got to thinking about it. Then I went and looked it up, and then I was like, oh my God, come on, guys.
Well, come on, man. They're being offensive to dogs. Why is it so bad to call it a dog collar?
Yeah, okay. So moving right along. Anyway, just wanted to comment on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into a little bit of monologuing here. I see calls in the queue. We will get to those. So yes, thank you. Just checking on the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So Post-Masterson sign. Oh, Jesus! Of course, no.
Oh yeah, Benson Cam.
Sorry about that, guys. Let us admire our little bundle of furry joy. That is our dog named Benson. His birthday was yesterday,
He's
everybody. 4 years old. Yeah, and he's got a dog collar on too.
Yeah, and a harness.
It's a different one. But there he is, totally chilling on the couch. You can see he is in desperate need of a haircut. And we'll figure that out. Now that you wouldn't know it's summer here with, the temperature's gone up, but it's just rainy every day.
Rain.
Every day. But there's our little snuggles, not struggles cam, focusing in on our little guy. And he looks like he's asleep, but he's not. There's his eyes moving around there. And he's just really wasted. I get him out for a walk every morning, and then he'll kind of collapse on the couch there.
For hours.
Yeah, for hours, exactly. So there's the snuggles, not struggles cam for you guys for this week. And anyway, Benson's he's actually right below us right now. So he gets real super sleepy in the late morning, and then chills most of the afternoon, and then he wakes up and he's a ball of energy.
Oh my God, yeah! And then you have to play with him.
You must play with him,
or he will not leave you alone.
He will not.
No.
It is constant stalking and harassment by Benson until. Yeah. And he does. He will stalk you and he will harass you until
he'll get in I have a little couch in my office, and he'll get on that, and then get on my desk. Or he'll get on that and get on the back of my chair and like scratch at me from the back of my chair to get my attention. Like, you gotta come play with me.
Yeah, he is very pestery. When he wants something, you definitely know he wants something. Okay, so just a couple points to make here tonight. I don't have some big long monologue. This is Post-it note monologue time. But this is a big deal this week, okay? Masterson getting convicted is a lot more than just Masterson getting convicted. There are repercussions to this, and there will be consequences to this. And one of the big ones, and this cannot really be overstated, is that Scientology, the Church of Scientology, has now factually, officially, in a legal sense, been shown to have contributed to and covered up crimes for one of its members, sexual crimes of a serious nature, of a felonious nature, crimes that are going to put Danny Masterson away for what could possibly be the rest of his life. We'll have to see. I've heard so many things. I've had so many people commenting on what the sentencing guidelines are, and that it's mandatory 15, or maybe it's not, or it's up to the judge. I was under the impression it was kind of up to the judge, but they had sentencing guidelines. But I'm being told in the comments, absolutely not. He's definitely going away for 30 plus years. Obviously, we'll find out, for real, for sure, at the sentencing hearing. And I don't know when that is exactly yet. But that's a really big deal, okay? Because what the time? Yeah, I don't know yet. Not sure. So what this means in terms of Scientology and why you saw that response from them is that was meant, I should have said this on Thursday. I didn't think to say this on Thursday, but that response that you saw from Scientology, and if you haven't seen it, watch that video. It's not that long, and we go into it in detail. That was meant for Scientologists, mostly. It's really not, you know, as with most things that Scientology produces and we end up looking at or critically examining, whether it's their PR statements or their videos on their Scientology TV channel or other ridiculous properties, like with that time I walked through the entire International Scientology News magazine and kind of showed you guys what internal news for Scientologists look like. That's really the public for, you know, who Miscavige is talking to. It's, hey, this was a railroad of Scientology in this case. We don't do any of that stuff. And how dare you bastards accuse us of that? This is a violation of the First Amendment. Well, if there is one thing in this country that you can almost always make some dumbass argument about, it is First Amendment rights.
Oh, yeah.
People lose their minds over this and grossly misunderstand what the First Amendment is. And then I'm not going to do a stump speech here on First Amendment. I'm just going to say that it's a grossly misunderstood thing. You know, we're talking about government activity, not private activity, for example. And this gets, you know, conflated all the time. But here we're talking about the free exercise clause. And it's very, very clear that Scientology has all the First Amendment rights it needs or it is ever going to need to practice its con, that they call a religion. That's never been interfered with by our government to our detriment and horror. We wish they would go investigate these guys. We wish they would take away their religious tax exempt status.
Oh, that'd be nice.
That would be wonderful, right? Because that would mean that they get it, that this is a con job and an operation and a business much more so than a religious enterprise. But they get to hide behind the First Amendment. Lots of organizations do that are, you know, not really that great. I, unfortunately, spend most of my time focused on those kind of groups. So also another reason you might not see a lot of positivity from me when it comes to religion is because my life tends to focus on the abusive spiritual abuse and psychological abuse that can result from some of these activities. But I know it's not all of them, and I know not all religion's bad, and I'm never, you know, tried to put that out there. And in fact, I've gone out of my way to say that religion is a necessary social component. It's absolutely part of our nature to have supernatural beliefs and ideas. Plus, there are all kinds of other reasons why religion is important. Scientology doesn't offer any of those positive aspects of this. Scientology is just a con that is trying to take money from people. So that all being said, their very disingenuous response was very clearly meant for Scientologists, so they would know how to think about this and look at this. Oh, this was an egregious attack on Scientology, you know, and this was the line Hubbard would use all the time. Back in the day when L. Ron Hubbard was alive, it was always government attacks and organizations coming after Scientology because we have the secret sauce to save the world. And these guys want it for their own twisted, nefarious ends, see? And it's all this big plot. And Hubbard would go on and on about this sometimes. And he talked about Smersh, which is a James Bond villain. And he talked about it as though it was a real thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And he would talk about the psychiatrists and how they were the enforcement arm for the governments of the world and this kind of thing. So anyway, I could go on and on about all that, but it's just that's where that I just should have said all that or thought of that on Thursday when I was talking about that response because, you know, it was kind of an obvious point about it that I didn't connect the dots on right away because I was looking at some of the other claims that were being made. So the point I wanted to make, though, is that Masterson's conviction put Scientology in the crosshairs of our legal system in a way that it hasn't been really, as far as I can tell, since Lisa McPherson, when she was killed under what will very
suspicious.
Yeah, very smoothly say incredibly suspicious, extraordinarily horrible conditions under Scientologist care.
Jesus.
And it took almost a year, if I remember right, of David Miscavige lobbying and throwing money all over Clearwater and doing their level best to get government officials and regulatory agencies and legal law enforcement officers and whatever on their side on the Lisa McPherson question of how did she die. And they hounded, while they were doing all that PR, they were also fair gaming the hell out of the coroner of Clearwater or that area, and drove her to retire at an early old age, and got her to put, cause of death was either undeterminate or accidental.
Wow.
When it should have been, a little bit more harsh of a sentence on that. Because David Miscavige was in the crosshairs, right? And Marty Rathbun, you might remember, one of his key leaks, one of the key things that he admitted to when he was still somebody that we could all trust and listen to, was that he had personally shredded tons and tons of documents connected with Lisa McPherson's death. That they had had a whole shred party and gotten rid of. There were daily logs, for example, that were kept, and the last couple days of her death, those logs are gone. Well, Marty Rathbun's the one who saw to that. So there's that history. Now we have this. Now, this is obviously not a murder. Nobody died here, but this is, like if we're going to have to categorize, this is going to be right below that. This is horrendously atrocious behavior on the part of Danny Masterson. And it was premeditated. It was planned. Like the DA went over. This was not an organic process that he just kind of accidentally fell into. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't, this could be a he said, she said. It wasn't that. This was a predator at work who was given air cover by the Church of Scientology time and time and time again. And we only know about these three. Who knows how many others there were?
Yeah, I'm sure there's more.
Exactly. We know that Scientology has covered up other sexual crimes of a sexual nature. We know that because we saw it happen. So that's out there. And lots and lots of other people have firsthand accounts of those assaults and what happened. And this case, having been successfully prosecuted now, definitely opens the door to the possibility that there may be other victims out there who are now going to come forward and go, hey, I was also sexually assaulted, or this or this or this, and Scientology covered it up or made me cover it up, so that I would not lose my family, friends, connections, and my life. So that's just one possible potential consequence here of what Scientology is facing. We also look at the fact that there are going to be, or could be, government interventions in the terms of this grand jury that we know about, and in terms of maybe other avenues of approach for criminal investigation. I personally, by the way, would love to see, I'm dying to see, a RICO investigation opened up on Scientology with the effort, the same way you take out a mafia-like organization, because that's what Scientology is structurally. It's very, very similar. In terms of the command structure, in terms of the protection of earners, as I did in that whole 2-hour video.
Oh, yeah, those celebrities get all kinds of protection and goodies and treatment.
Right. And like you watch on The Sopranos or in The Godfather, when they talk about earners, you got to be an earner. That's a term they use. That's an upstat in Scientology. It's same concept, exact same concept. Where to the point where Hubbard wrote in his policies, you can get away with murder if your statistics are up. Some people take that shit literally. So, and this is why we talk about destructive cults, why it's destructive. So those are some of the consequences, which we've talked about. But I wanted to tonight talk about a longer term look. I was on Apostate Alex channel this week, and we talked about a realistic perspective of the end of Scientology. What would it really look like? It doesn't look like a ban. Australia already tried that. It didn't work. It doesn't look like burning all the books, right? It doesn't look like David Miscavige going to jail and shutting down the base. Even all of that doesn't end Scientology. It's a subject, and it's got books and materials and groups all over, and it's tiny. It's tiny, but far tinier groups in history have lasted for literally hundreds of years.
So is the goal just to get it to be as tiny as possible? Like those, like, what was that cult you were telling me about one time where it's just like there's like maybe 5 or 10 people now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Even in groups that don't allow sexual encounters or childbearing, those was the Quakers, the Shakers. There was a group that just died out. I mean, they lasted for a while on this. So, point being that when we talk about an end to this, I would very certainly like to consider a victory David Miscavige off the stage.
Oh, yeah.
One way or another. When by that I mean he either, dies off of natural causes or whatever, or accident. Certainly not, murder. Or goes to jail, preferably. That would be awesome to see a little bit of justice delivered in that guy's direction for all of his crimes. And do we even know the tip of the iceberg? What else do we not know about that he might be involved in? So when we look longer term, here's what I thought, and I know the Catholics are going to love this one, but I went and looked at what would be socially, if you look at the whole spectrum of how Scientology, let me go back for a second. If you look at the whole spectrum of how Scientology is been thought about, how the public sentiment or public image of Scientology has changed over the last 20 years, it is significant and important. It's huge. Prior to 2008, here and there in various articles and documentaries or exposés, very sporadically, you would hear about Scientology. The biggest one was the Time Magazine, 1993, big expose, Scientology, Cult of Greed, Time Magazine cover article, big octopus coming out of a volcano or something, and it was a real takedown on Scientology. Then there was an LA Times series of articles. The last time LA Times really took Scientology seriously was this I think it was a 6-part series or something. And they did this big expose on Scientology. Of course, both of these institutions, I believe, were sued by Scientology.
Oh, man, of course.
Right? With the intent to harass, not win, because they didn't. I don't think they won. They didn't win the Time Magazine one, and I just can't remember on the LA Times. But they didn't need to. They cost Time Magazine enough money in years of litigation that Time Magazine was, we're never going to talk about Scientology ever again. That was then. 2008 happens. The anonymous protests, everything changes, right? We've been over that in a lot of detail on this channel. But since that time, Scientology has actually stayed in the media all this time. That is so unusual, right? Usually there's a media cycle, especially in this short attention span theater, attention economy that we've created. It's very, very unusual for something to do that. And yet Scientology has been exposed and exposed and exposed over and over and over again. And along with it have been many other cultic groups and activities and predatory activities, from individuals to small groups to multi-level marketing groups to destructive cults, to the point that it's now a whole genre. Destructive cults, cult documentaries. You can go on Netflix and find one almost any week, or you'll find it on Hulu or Prime. You'll find work out there constantly being created. Look at the affluence of channels right now on YouTube from ex-Scientologists. It's suddenly flourishing. I've been doing this for 10 years, and now it's taking off on YouTube, right? For real. It's really only been a few of us.
All kinds of media have Scientology jokes and statements and stuff. Now, like the John Oliver thing and the Where's Shelley.
That's exactly where I was going, is when it's in the cultural zeitgeist to where John Oliver can make a repeating joke about Where's Shelley, Or Jared Carmichael at the Oscars a year or two ago. Remember that? Where he comes out and he's like, I got these Oscars Tom Cruise return.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anybody know? I think, what did he say? Anybody know where Shelley is? I can give him back, you know, something like that. I would have put you on cat kibble. So, Colonel Brock, you're hilarious. So that's important. I mean, if you look at things from a bigger perspective than just the one-on-one abuse and the day-to-day of this, and actually kind of take a 20-foot, 20-mile view, we're looking at Scientology in a whole new light than what it was 20 years ago. And the membership numbers, I believe, reflect that change. They are shrinking. We know they are. We can see that visibly when you drive by the parking lots, when you drive by the buildings, when you go by the flag thing, when you look at public media opinion polls. Scientology's at the bottom of trustworthy groups, right down there with atheists. So that's a good thing, right? We like that. And that indicates to us that Scientology, that our work in exposing Scientology, and I'll say our, I mean everybody's, and I do mean all the way back to the beginning, because all of us are really doing our work on the shoulders of giants. That you go back to the 70s and 80s, the Paulette Coopers and the Jerry Armstrongs and the people who really took shellackings for speaking out, and their lives were literally ruined or just about by Scientology back when their fake game tactics were unbelievable. What they would do, they didn't just follow you to the damn grocery store. They tried to set you up with the FBI for, trying to blow buildings up and shit. I mean, it was crazy, the kind of stuff that Scientology would do when they had unfettered power and nobody was paying attention to them. They were just under the radar as far as all those activities went. Right. Nobody knew. Nobody had a clue. The largest infiltration the United States government ever carried out by a private institution was Church Scientology to this day. That's kind of a big deal. So now it's all different. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because this has long-term consequences for Scientology's growth. It's going downhill, and it's just going to keep going downhill. And what I could compare it to in terms of percentages is I went, well, what would be a comparable level of exposure for that size group, right? How about Spotlight? Remember Spotlight and the Catholic Church? And this was, 1998?
Something like that.
Right? That this Boston Globe article comes out, then they made a movie about it. This was huge, right? That the Catholic Church has been proven, documented to show a long history of covering up for pedophiles. We all know about this. Why do we all know about this? Because it's spread into the cultural zeitgeist. It's not just a story that happened and came and went. It came and then there was more, and then there was more, and then there was more. And to this day, I mean, you can go on social media sites, on Reddit. You can find daily postings of new exposés. Not all Catholics, but, they're represented. It still goes on, right? We still see this kind of really atrocious behavior out of these groups. And the result of this, where I wanted to go with this is, since 2000, this was an article from 2001, this was on church membership among Catholics declined nearly 20% since 2000. So I go, Spotlight shines the light on all this abusive behavior. What's been the long-term consequence for that group? 20% loss. The percentage of Catholics who say they are a member of a church has dropped by nearly 20 points since the year 2000. In the past decade, and this is an important one because we know already, Pew Center research has shown for a couple decades now that religious membership and attendance has been going down in the United States. This is an ongoing thing. Just in general, yeah. That's right, just in general. So this is understood. However, the Catholics have been losing even more than the average. In the past decade, Catholics saw a twice as steep decline in members than did Protestants.
Well, that's got to rub them the wrong way.
Yeah. Say Protestants had a 9% decline in members of churches. So Yeah, religious attitudes and practices, regular routine sort of thing. The then of course we had coronavirus and all that. Membership has been declining with each successive generation. Most prominent, interestingly, in membership decline were Hispanic Americans.
Wow.
Yeah. So long-term effects is my point. You blow the door open, you get the light on these kind of activities, and people start looking at the group as a whole very differently. And if what I'm saying right now is somehow offensive to your beliefs, well, I'm not talking about your beliefs. I'm talking about the actions taken by a number of people, not everybody, not all the Catholics are pedophiles by any stretch of the imagination. That's not even anywhere. It's that that organization has covered up for those few members who are. And that's not right. And everybody knows that's not right. And it has nothing to do with the beliefs. It has to do with the actions of an organization that is covering up the internal bad news and bad behavior of its membership. People don't respect that. People don't want that. They don't want to go anywhere near it because it lacks integrity and honesty and transparency. And that's what people appreciate about groups, especially religions, because religions are where we get our morals from for the most part. So if people can't trust these groups, they're not going to be members. They're not going to keep going. They're going to go find something else, or they're just going to leave entirely. And that arguably is not necessarily for society the greatest thing in the world, but that all depends on your religious persuasion, and that's not the argument I'm making today. So this business of how the Catholics have been losing 1 in 5. 20 years ago, there was one more person for every 5 than there is now. So what would that mean for Scientology? A huge loss, and they're already going down.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for like a long-term, this cult needs to go kind of situation where it just kind of disappears because the membership just goes, this is exactly the kind of thing that's going to spark that kind of thing, is what I'm saying. I'm connecting those dots. This is supposition on my part, but I believe that this is where this is going. Because look at the societal zeitgeist, look at the crimes that we now know about, and, does it ever just die with one story? Does it ever just die with one conviction? Hell no. People want justice. They want it badly against these groups that cover up for predators. It's just not right that groups do that. It is so much in the longer term. It's always so funny to me because in the short term, they always do the cover up because, it's going to be so devastating to our image and our PR, and nobody will give us more money, or no, everybody's going to leave, or they're all going to, whatever bullshit
and it
excuses.
always comes out anyway.
Exactly. It always comes out anyway. And when it does, everybody just loses their damn minds. Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. So honesty and transparency and integrity has to be modeled. Otherwise, why would people continue to believe that you have those things if you don't show and demonstrate them through your actions? That's what's, and I don't mean to turn this into a moral sermon. It's just how people are. They this like, show me, don't tell me. Walk the walk, don't just talk the talk. And these kind of moral dilemmas, these kind of moral crisis points are make-break points for organizations and for individuals who are members. Because these kind of moral crises are the things that cause people to go, what the hell am I part of? Right? And it's far, and while I'm using the Catholics as an example right now, let's be clear, right? Islam has problems here with honor killings and with certain other things that go on in families under radical Islam. I'm not saying all Islamicists any more than I'm saying all Catholics, right? But is there bad behavior there? You bet there is. Is there bad behavior in the Jewish community? You bet there is. Yeah. Is there bad behavior in the Buddhist community? You bet there is. And are there organizations or structures that protect predators in those groups? You bet there are. And it's just kind of this gross kind of human nature point that we have to be aware of all the time in police. We have to. We got to be on the lookout for this stuff no matter where it's presenting its ugly head. This is super, super important.
I mean, it's like people just think they need to protect the people that are on their side, even if the people that are on their side are not good people.
Exactly.
And that's not okay.
It's just not when you know, right? Suspecting, okay, fine, right? Accusation is not guilt. I'm not suggesting any kind of like bizarre behavior here. I'm just saying when you do the normal, usual, these predators appear, and when they do, because they're out there, and there's quite a few of them, when they appear, they need to be dealt with for what, for who and what they are. Okay, so that's where that's why I think in all of this that Scientology, wow, look at this, we got over 200 viewers.
I know, isn't it great?
Such an awesome Friday turnout. So this is why I believe, and I've been so elated this week with this decision, because I see this kind of domino effect going out into the future. And that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, is that I'm very encouraged, so happy, because the ramifications of this are going to go far beyond this one case or these victims. And that in no way, of course, takes away from the importance of this to these women and how much they've had to go through and endure in order to get this. They are heroes. I will say this again. They are heroes. No one should have to go through the amount of bullshit that Scientology puts people through. And there's a long line of people who are incredibly heroic, who have taken the shellackings so that we have the knowledge and oomph to want to do something about it. And that's important, right? This isn't for me and for so many of you, this is not a spectator activity. This isn't something we just watch and eat popcorn and go, oh, isn't that entertaining? Cults have become a genre, an entertainment genre now, like true crime. There's podcasts, there's documentaries, there's videos, there's movies. Sure enough, right? And in fact, a video series I'll be doing in the future is cults and entertainment. Because I want to break all that stuff down for people, right? And show how good and bad and right and wrong some of these shows, the entertainment shows, are getting it. Sometimes they're spot on and sometimes they are way off. So I think that'll be kind of a fun series of videos to do for you guys in the future, right? So take part, do something, be part of this. Because what we're doing in exposing this, what all of us are doing in exposing this stuff actually does matter, actually does make a difference. It just does. I think that's pretty solid at this point. Not just ego, because we need to believe we're doing something too. I get that, right? I've never said I'm an unbiased observer in all of this, but just wanted to get that out there. Now, we do have some calls that have been waiting in the queue. So this is now the call-in portion of our show. Let's get to it. Let's go ahead and pick up Mark here. Hello, is this Mark Kemper?
Yeah. I was kind of shocked at the guilty verdict, and it kind of says the message that, the Scientology, that you're no longer invincible. And, Scientology did every trick they could, even tried to get the judge thrown off the case, and it all backfired on them.
Yep, big time.
And hopefully now it'll set off a kind of a chain reaction that people, it's been proven that Scientology can be beaten. There's nothing they can do about it. So people realize they can stand up to Scientology and don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
they're not as powerful as they used to be.
So
yeah,
and 30 years ago, Scientology could have gotten away, could have gotten Danny off, paid off the prosecutor or something to judge, but not now.
That's right.
The now times are finally changing, and now, as I said, people a long time ago, people were scared to death to speak anything about Scientology, but now you see them in tabloids. They're being spoofed on TV all the time.
That's right.
People have just lost their fear of them.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Exactly.
And so,
exactly. And we are very happy about that. You're up in Washington, yeah?
yeah.
How's it up there? Do you hear or see anything up there on this topic?
No, nothing locally. I saw something on the news, but it wasn't local news. It was it was the big time news.
Okay.
So,
okay.
but nothing.
Well, I'll tell you, there's such a tiny little group up there. I think there's probably, if I remember right, I was up in Seattle a couple times when I was in the Sea Org, and I think there might be something like 200 Scientologists up there. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's not a lot.
Yeah. I have no clue. But and I rarely ever get to Seattle with all the crap that's going on down there now. And
course.
so I would love to go by Oregon and give them some hell, but I'm afraid if I go to Seattle, I might not make it back home alive.
Fair enough. All right, Mark. Well, thank you for calling in.
It's all nice and sunny over here.
Oh man.
Oh, nice. Wish we had some of that sun
I know,
over here.
right?
All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for calling. I got some other calls in the queue.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right. Good call there. And, okay. Hello, you are on.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Who am I talking to?
Awesome. My name is also Chris.
Hey.
Oh.
Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. So, I follow stuff. I know what's going on in the trial and stuff. Of course, I follow Tony's blog and all that. And my question, I guess, is what do we think is going to happen in the Tampa trial, the civil trial now? I haven't heard anybody really talking about that so much. I think obviously, the win in criminal court is huge for the civil trial.
Well, you're talking about the upcoming civil trial or did you say the one in?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
The upcoming.
No. Well, right. I think it's in Tampa, right? And the same courtroom as the Garcia trial. And I mean, that's there too.
Yeah. No, okay.
Yeah.
So that one went to arbitration, right?
I guess not. I didn't think so. So she's forced in that now. There is no trial.
Yeah, the judge ruled that's got to go to arbitration according to the contract law. If I'm remembering right on that, it's
I thought there was another step to that they were still trying to kind of skirt around the whole arbitration thing. I guess I'm not. Yeah. And I followed it pretty well. I think.
Yeah, check it out because I believe that got stalled on that, and they're going to have to figure out whether they're going to go argue against that, or are they going to go to it and then come back and say it was a farce? Because that's what Luis Garcia tried, and it kind of didn't really go anywhere. Which is that's why I said it's such a hurdle to overcome still on that point.
So, and still, this trial didn't affect that trial at all?
Oh, no.
Anything in it?
No. Masterson's case would not have any effect on a civil trial in Tampa. Two completely different.
Okay.
Yeah, not going to, unfortunately, but they just don't. It's different states, literally different laws at play. You know, whole different venue. Judges aren't talking to each other about cases like that. It's not even the same ballpark, unfortunately. And this doesn't really help yet in terms of that problem of religious arbitration and contract law.
Right. And the other thing, because Scientology was kind of dragged through the mud here.
Yes, it was. But that's on the criminal side.
Yeah. Okay. I honestly, again, I thought it really would have affected that somewhat, and I guess I was misinformed on that data that they still had a shot at it. And Valerie, I guess everybody knows her name, right? I thought they had kind of skirted that arbitration, or at least had a chance to still skirt it at this point, or kind of go around it. But I guess they. So what you're saying is they've exhausted all their appeals on the civil stuff, and she's stuck with the IJC.
Well, it's going to have to go to a Scientology ComEv, right, which will be their version of Scientology arbitration. And
right.
Yeah, and there's not like an appeal process on that. I mean, the judge issues the order, and then that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess you could question it, but they already went through that process, and that was in the California civil cases and in the Florida ones. The only exception to this so far has been Masterson's victims on their civil case. On that one, they're not going to arbitration. But what Scientology is going to do on that one is they're going to file what's called an anti-slap motion. And they're going to delay this fucking thing for as long as they can. Pardon my French. But so they've got a few. Scientology still has legal maneuvers at their disposal, and they're absolutely going to keep using them. What they don't have is protection in criminal court right now.
Right.
You know,
and if you want to switch gears just a little bit, because I know you'll have some insight on this. So there is another upcoming hearing on, I think it's the 7th, Wednesday, a week later.
Yes.
So who did it? Where did did you get that information before? Like who's the guy in charge of getting that information and getting it on Ms. Cavish's desk?
Yeah, what we're thinking right now, and this is all conjecture, okay, is they were going to have the hearing on Wednesday, and Tom Messerow and Sharon Applebaum showed up, and they were the former attorneys for Danny Masterson's defense in the rape trial. So it's now thought, since those two showed up with their own lawyers for this hearing, it's kind of obvious. We're thinking they're the ones who leaked the prosecution's discovery data and gave it to the Church of Scientology, who had no business having that information. Scientology's not going to...
They did have business because there's civil suits involved. That's why, he wants to know.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, but I'm hoping that information will be able to make it over to the civil trial so that it can be shown, obviously Scientology was using that information to stalk and harass the victims. Right,
yeah. Exactly. And that's why they paid the PIs and everything else, right? And we've had now recently new PIs coming forward saying, yeah, we did this, we did it.
That's right.
That's right. They should be part of that trial.
Well, and there's a legal question on that because they should be, as terms of historical witnesses, but of course they're not the PIs who were stalking and harassing Masterson's victims. So they can't testify directly to that fact. And innuendo only going to get you so far in a court of law, right? You really want direct witnesses on that kind of stuff. But I'm sure the victims are coming forward with tons of evidence of how they have been stalked and harassed already. So but it's just going to be a while before we're going to see the results on that case.
As it is. Always, again, thank you, Chris, so much. And you guys do a great job doing what you're doing, and keep it up. Thank you, Chris, Melissa. Appreciate you guys so much.
Perfect. Thanks, man. Bye-bye. All right. Got one more call here, and I believe this is Travis.
Yeah, sure looks like it.
Hello, is this Travis?
It is.
Hey, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for taking my call. And Melissa, you had a good quote this week.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so here's a question about the Masterson trial, Chris.
Yeah.
What type of testimony or evidence or both was given about the stalking and harassing that you were just talking about? Like, how in depth and detail oriented was that? You know?
With I'm sorry, could you give me a little bit more context with what evidence about stalking and harassment was given to who about Scientology?
No, at Danny Masterson's trial. So it's been brought up by Tony Ortega and yourself repeatedly that that came up at trial, that the witnesses, or excuse me, the complainants, the victims, have repeatedly been harassed, stalked, and so forth. Yeah. And that the prosecution utilized some type of narrative to introduce and reinforce the fact that Scientology uses this type of pressure to silence people.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
How in depth was that at the Masterson trial?
Oh, got it now. Totally got your question. Yes, totally got your question. According to Tony's reporting, not a lot. There were comments made by the witnesses on the stand about having computers hacked or trash gone through or being followed, and that this had been ongoing behavior for years. So, and that was actually about it from my memory of what was talked about directly on that point. It was alluded to more so than it was reported on directly, because Scientology was not a defendant in this case. Danny Masterson was, and they had to make it clear to the jury that Masterson was not the one personally stalking and harassing them. Therefore, this was only testimony to back up and provide the victim's state of mind as to why they had taken so long to report the crimes in the first place. Does that all make sense?
Okay. So it does, and that's unfortunately, I was hoping that the DA would have corroborated or provided some type of forensic validation to these claims that the witnesses had. Unfortunately,
no, didn't have to make the case.
Didn't have to make what Masterson is guilty.
Yeah, in order to make the rape case, they didn't have to go into proving Scientology was stalking and harassing these victims. They commented on it because it was a state of mind point, not let's go prove Scientology is doing this.
Yeah, I get it. So it's a focus issue.
Yeah.
I thought perhaps so here's the reason I'm asking that is because sexual assault and rape, coercion is one of the major points, if not the biggest point. Violence, coercion, control.
Yeah,
is one of the biggest points of that
Absolutely.
crime. Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of its intent. Now,
Agreed.
Danny Masterson, obviously, it's one of those things. So Danny Masterson had obviously conducted himself in a particular manner, which I won't go into here.
Sure.
And after which way the continuation of that behavior was the mantle of that behavior was then the coercion, I should say, was then picked up by Scientology or its minions. You see. Yeah. And that's further victimization of the.
Well, that's what the civil trial is going to be all about. Everything you're asking about, that's what that thing is all about. And that's where Masterson and the Church of Scientology are both named defendants. So if that actually goes to trial and gets in front of a jury, all of the details of this are going to come out.
So I have to say that tell me what you think the chances of that actually going to trial are. The first, I'd like for your opinion about that.
Yeah.
About the civil case.
It's a tough one. Scientology here's why I say it's a little bit of a tough one, is because Scientology is a formidable group to take on. And they will drag stuff out for years, as long as they possibly can. This anti-slap motion will be the beginning. There will be, like Marty Rathbun's case, it just went on and on and on. Very incremental progress. And then they come in with a settlement offer before it gets in front of a jury. And they'll come in with something big. It sounds like there's some wind or something in the the background.
Yeah,
there.
that's my fault, man.
Okay, cool. So they're going to come in with something big if it gets to that point. So big that it's going to be pretty tempting to just like move on. And given the amount of anxiety and struggle that people go through in these cases, it's almost impossible for any of us to put ourselves in their place unless you've been there. Mike Rinder wrote an article about this that very thing today. So it's easy to judge, but not necessarily easy to actually live through. And that's why a settlement might be like, okay, we're going to be set for life. Let's just get let's just hit the eject button. Now, that's not a comment on anybody's honesty, integrity, compassion, or push for justice. It's a comment on the fact that this is exhausting work and very, very, very difficult. So that's how it could go. But on the other hand, they could go all the way. It depends very much on what they want to do at that time. And I'm not going to predict what they're going to do when and if that moment comes.
Okay, that's fair enough. What the victims have going for them is, number one, in the civil court, the evidentiary standard for guilt is considerably lower than it is in criminal court.
That's right.
mean, laughably lower.
Yep. That's right.
It's civil court. Honestly, their evidentiary standard for guilt on it, and here's a little known fact, is the same for criminal proceedings in the military. Believe it or not. Anyway, moving. Yeah, it's kind of scary actually if you think about it. But anyway, having said that, I don't know if it were to go to trial, that would be all that difficult for the victims to prove this case or make a good a demonstrable case. That would be convincing enough.
It would be. Absolutely, it would be. But realize that from the position of somebody who's going into that, it's a jury, and it's gonna be there's never 100% certainty on it.
I understand that, and by the way, I can't argue with that. What I will say is that, considering today's climate when it comes to sexual assault, I mean, you're pretty much guilty before the trial even starts.
True.
That's Okay. I hear you. I absolutely hear you, and I agree.
Everyone's
By the way,
guilty
I'm only playing devil's advocate a little bit here. I want this to go to trial badly. Okay, so
I do too.
Yeah, real bad. But I'm just trying to say
everyone's guilty all the time of sexual assault, and I'm not saying that's wrong or right.
Yeah.
You have to prove your innocence today, and it's just the way the world works.
Yeah.
And it's Scientology, okay? I mean, the presumption of guilt there is
big,
far beyond what it is just for your regular citizen.
Exactly.
Or men in general, I should say. But anyway, that's all I've got. I wish I had something funny to end with, but I don't.
Fair enough. Well, thank you, Travis, for calling in. Always appreciate it. Talk to you. All right. We are going to move right along here and end our show now. Let's headphones off.
Oh, yeah. We don't need them anymore.
Okay. Thank you very much for the callers tonight. That was fun. I always like getting the back and forth on that, and I very much appreciated the points made tonight. Yeah, good stuff. So let us wrap up.
Alrighty.
All right, critical thinking card time, guys. We do, for those of you who might not be regular viewers, every show we end off with a little teaching moment on cognitive biases and critical thinking points, logical fallacies that we could do better at in our life. What you got for us this week?
Okay. Fundamental attribution error. You judge others on their character, but yourself on the situation. It's not only kind to view others' perspectives with charity, it's more objective too. Try to be mindful to err on the side of taking personal responsibility rather than justifying and blaming.
There
we go.
That's
so easy.
Your bias. Fundamental attribution error is a big one.
Oh, yeah.
To address just a couple things real fast here, Danny Masterson didn't even make it to clear. I think he was grade.
Oh, wow.
I think he was grade 2, which is fucking ironic if you know Scientology's grades, because grade 2 is the level that deals with overts and withholds, where you're supposed to be a real clean person after you've done it. Yeah. Exactly. Says a lot about the workability of Scientology that Danny Masterson was grade 2. I'm telling you, that's just a sick joke. So there you go on that. And as far as Danny Masterson's status as a Scientologist, it's over. They're done with him. I'm absolutely positive of that. If I am proven wrong, fine, I'll eat my words. But he's a felon, convicted, in jail, going to prison. They are not going to stay defending or connected with that guy. But I've been wrong before. If they decided to spin this as it was all a frame job set up, we never believe he was guilty, and this is total nonsense, fine. But as far as I can tell, they're gonna throw him under the bus, just like they do anybody else who is a PR threat or liability to them. All right, guys. So thanks for all the comments. Loved it all. Thank you for helping.
You are welcome as always.
All right. And 3-hour podcast coming to you guys tomorrow. Australia Scientology Experience. My very first ex-Scientologist from Australia and I, long form interview. You guys buckle up for that one. There's a lot of stuff we talk about. He turned academic. So we get into a little bit of stuff, and then we get into his story. It's long, it's involved, it's atrocious. Check it out. And then Sunday Q&A. All right, guys. And with that, we are done. Bye-bye.
Good night.